No Rest for the Weekend's coverage of the Tribeca Film Festival is sponsored by Blackmagic Design, the world's highest quality products for the feature film, post and broadcast industries. Blackmagicdesign.com, and by the Tonkawa Film Festival, celebrating short films from around the world. Tonkawafilmfestival.com.
Hello again, it's Jason Godbey from No Rest for the Weekend, here with an interview from Tribeca Festival. Joining me now via Zoom, he is the director of the new feature Lemonade Blessing, Mr. Chris Merola. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Jason. Great to see you.
It's great to have you. I saw the film, and I got questions.
Cool. Hit me up, dude.
Well, first of all, the obligatory question I have to ask is, how does it feel to be premiering at Tribeca?
Dude, it's absolutely wacky. Honestly, I try not to dwell on it because it's like, it's such a low probability that like there has to be like a large portion of luck involved. And so I'm just trying not to think about it too much. And I'm like, okay, wow, that is insane. Yeah, it's crazy. It hasn't really sunk in yet. Yeah, I'm just like, kind of, yeah.
We're talking. This is before your premiere, so you haven't been there yet. So I'm sure there's lots of anticipation going on. I want to get into the film, but first, because nobody's seen this picture yet, give us a little synopsis. Tell us a little bit about the movie.
So Lemonade Blessing is a story about a Catholic high school freshman who's a child of divorce. His devout mom throws him into a buttoned up Catholic high school, and he falls for this rebellious atheist girl who has him commit sacrilegious dares in order to further their relationship. So he's kind of torn between two people he both wants to love, but they both want him to be someone completely different. And that's kind of the central crux of the film.
I'll couch this question with a little bit of a little preamble. I want to ask you about the inspiration for this movie.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to have been your childhood.
Well, I think, listen, I definitely wanted to write something that felt really honest to me. Ultimately, it's a work of fiction, but, just to get the first draft down on the page, it involved me, writing down childhood memories and adolescent memories and then stringing them together and then slightly fictionalizing them, and then pairing them together in a structure. Of course, the movie's not based on a true story or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, I think these are feelings that I felt really real to me. The sacrilegious dares are like a real externalization to me of guilt that I felt over being, a sexual person when I was coming of age and in high school, and the way that it felt like I was betraying the faith that I was given, but really that I was betraying like my love for my mother, who really sort of raised me with that faith. So yeah, it does kind of come from an honest place, for better or worse, I would say.
I was trying to think of how to review it and how to sort of put this in the review. And what I came up with was it's an intimate portrait, and at times a little too intimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have these scenes with teenagers, and I don't know the actual ages of the
they're 20
actors.
And 22. I wouldn't have shot with underage actors. Yeah.
They're 20 and 20. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. That was important because, obviously teenagers hook up, but you shouldn't have underage people hooking up. I think that's a little too uncomfortable for everyone involved. Yeah.
I mean, there's no just to warn the audience, there's nothing overtly sexual, like you don't actually show people having sex or anything like that. But there are these intimate scenes between these two very young seeming people. I didn't realize they were in their 20s, but because they look like they're 15, they look super young. How were you approaching those scenes? Did you have like an intimacy coordinator? Did you rehearse? Like how would that work? The logistics of it.
Yeah, so during the casting process, we were very clear up front that anyone trying out for the role would have to kiss, and maybe have some degree of heavy petting in order to do the role, and that we'd have an intimacy coordinator. Actually, believe it or not, I got recommended an intimacy coordinator, and I was like, why does this name seem so familiar? It was actually a friend of mine from high school, so it's kind of especially hilarious to work with someone I went to high school with on this. But yeah, we had 6 days of rehearsal. We spent about 2 days rehearsing the intimate scenes with Jake and Skye. On set, we had a closed set, so nobody besides the DP and myself and the actors could see what was going on. And of course, I think from a coverage perspective, as you said, the goal of these sequences is not to be titillating. It's to reach a truth, which is that if something happens and it's real, then it affects people. And I think it's meaningful to make a film about that and to explore that within reason. I do, admit that, the film is to some extent a bit in your face about those elements. And I think that's just a bit part of my voice. I am a bit impish in that way, that like I kind of like, poking people like that. But it's mostly because I really resent the ways in which young love is portrayed as titillating in shows where you have really hot 30-year-olds like making out and being naked on camera, and it's like really weird. I think part of the reason why these kids look young is because there's so many 30-year-olds being cast to play high schoolers. You know what I mean?
They say casting is like 80% of directing. And I thought you cast a great group all the way around. It's a wonderful ensemble. I was really curious about, those scenes in particular and just getting these two people together because they do have tremendous chemistry, and chemistry, you can't direct that. Like you either have it or you don't. And I was kind of wondering about the uncomfortable nature of some of these scenes. And, you talked about like poking people, but how what's the line kind of thing of between making an audience, like giving them a realistic depiction and actually making them cringe or be uncomfortable? And is that something that you were kind of willing to cross?
Yeah, it's something that was on my mind. It's an ethical question that every person has to answer for themselves, right? What are the ethics of making someone uncomfortable, right? There are clearly situations where making someone uncomfortable is acceptable and situations where it's like less so. In this situation, I think that because these are experiences that people have, like we have plenty of evidence to suggest that about like 25% of people are sexually active by the time they're age 14 or 15. So we know that there's a non-negligible amount of the human population that's like exploring their bodies and getting to know one another and being romantic and intimate with each other. We know that this is a thing that's happening. And I think as long as we portray that in a way that is honest, even if it's in your face, if it's not inherently manipulative, I think it's okay. And as far as the actors go, everyone was totally comfortable. I think, life imitates art in such a way that like, Lilith's character was very assertive and Skye as an actress was very much like, yeah, let's do it, and Jake was more like, tell me exactly what to do at every moment of this scene so that I get it right, and of course it's kind of just fun. Casting is 80% of it, as you say. And yeah, their personalities were very much on-set and off-set, very similar, I would say.
Like I said, great job casting all the way around. The parents, the adults in this, the teachers, everybody seems very real. The other bear that you're sort of poking with this film is religion,
Yeah, yeah.
which, John Mulaney famously said about the Catholic Church, don't Google us. But like,
Yeah,
but like,
that's great.
did you feel like, oh, this is going to upset people who are devoutly Catholic? Am I going to upset a community here? Do I care if I'm upsetting a community? Or do you feel like you're painting the religion itself in a positive light?
I thought pretty hard about this one. Like the Brother Phil character is an embodiment to me of what it means to be like a genuinely good Catholic or Christian, someone who embodies love and giving people freedom to make mistakes and become the people that they're supposed to be, not to pressure them into becoming something. Because I do think like Christ, if you're around today, Christ hung out in his time, in his era, with people who were the neglected and the outcasts of society. And so I think that there's a bit of an overemphasis on ritual, and there should be more of an emphasis on compassion and love, I think, in the Catholic Church. And so I tried to have a character that I think represented the ideal of that. And I tried with the sacrilegious dares to emphasize that these are 15-year-olds. They don't quite know what they're doing. So if we were to go into the theological underpinnings, in order for someone to commit a mortal sin in the Catholic faith, they actually need to have total knowledge of what it is they're doing. And I'd argue that John doesn't commit mortal sins in this film because I don't know if he has total knowledge because he's underage. His brain isn't fully developed. So I'm not even sure if like under the actual Catholic doctrine, John could fully fall under like committing mortal sins in this sense. But yes, obviously there's sacrilege, like holy objects are defamed in the film. I was trying to link that with, I was trying to make an externalization of guilt over sexuality within the film. And yes, I knew it was going to upset some people, but I tried to emphasize that this makes John feel very guilty. By doing these things, he ultimately, repents to some degree, right? He doesn't do these sins anymore. He doesn't like doing them. And he becomes a more whole person by the end of the film. So listen, it was not my goal to just wake up in the morning and upset people. That's not why I do things. But I do think that in pursuing the truth, we do sometimes have to upset some people. So I think that's kind of my thought on that.
I've seen, I've seen a lot of films in this job, and it does seem that some films that tackle tricky subject matters do it in a performative way. It's like they're trying to piss people off, they're trying to cause controversy. This feels like the religion, the relation, it's just all a backdrop for this one kid, his coming of age story. Like this, it just seems specific to that character in that
I'm
way.
glad you feel that way. I see it as a psychological, sociological thing where it's like it could have been any faith, right? I just happen to be raised Catholic, and I'm thinking psychologically about why do people become who they become, and how do their parental relationships and their first love relationships influence them. So I was just going based off of reality. Like I have no axe to grind with religion. Like I think Catholicism's cool. Like if it's actually lived to the letter of the faith, the two great commandments are fantastic. I think they're an amazing way for people to live.
So, as far as the film is right now, you're premiering at Tribeca. What plans do you have for the future? What's the anticipation of seeing it with an audience? Give me a look into the future for you.
Well, I'm really excited for the premiere. I'm super stoked to see where we land in terms of distributor. I'd love to get limited theatrical. I'd love to like sneak into theaters and just see how like general audiences react to it. Like that's really fun. And then yeah, I'm working on my next thing. I've got like a sort of father son to Lemonade's mother son story coming up. That's basically like it's a send up of the 2021 GameStop stock short squeeze where a kid, to impress his dad, breaks into his life savings on TD Ameritrade and gambles his life savings away on GameStop stock. The same day it goes down 50% in 30 minutes. So he's got to get dad's money back before he notices. So I'm really stoked about that one. It's going to be very ADHD, internet, Reddit, gambling disordery, and it'll be really, really fun.
All right, man, that sounds awesome. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for doing this, and all the luck in the world to you, man.
Thanks so much, Jason. I appreciate you.
This is the BTRP Media Network.